My name is Traciana Graves, and I'm the founder of Project Bully Free Zone. We are a national organization that helps people in schools, colleges, and the workplace recognize bullying and also prevent bullying in a sustainable capacity. All of us wear constantly one or more of the following 3 Bs. We're either the person being bullied, we're either the person who is the bully themselves, or we are either the bystander who stands by knowing someone is actually being targeted again and again, who says and does nothing because we don't recognize or we forget we have the power to make a difference in the world. If you look at 42% of young people being cyberbullied and not reporting it, if you look at 18 million students reporting that they were bullied in the school, if you look at all these people who have reported being bullied, then look at all of the bystanders who have watched, who've known what's happening, who've done nothing because they were afraid, because they didn't know their voices mattered, because they didn't know they could do something. Who are the people committing these acts? They're people too with value to themselves and to the world that we haven't figured out how to harness yet. The bullies aren't the problem. Bullying is the epidemic. So the cure to the 3 Bs are the 3 Ps, which is if everyone was in connection with their power. If you're feeling good about yourself because you're empowered, if you feel that you have a purpose, that is something that is fulfilling to yourself and some reason why you're here, let alone why you're going to your school, some purpose you can actually give back to your organization or school, and also the power to do it. If you're really in contact with or in connection with those 3 things, then those 3 Bs will no longer be prevalent. We won't have the epidemic that we're having. I became a bullying expert because my childhood was defined by wearing the hat of the bullied for 15 years. From the time I was 7 all the way up till high school, and even going into my college years, I was bullied. How I walked, how I spoke, how I participated in class, how I dressed. When I would look at some of my idols who were singers, who were vocalists, from Billie Holiday to Marian Anderson to Edith Piaf to Josephine Baker, it was this notion of your voice, of being able to open your mouth and have whoever you are be expressed in sound. That was incredibly intriguing to me. And I was told often enough, that's one more thing you can't do, don't do it. I was bullied perhaps all the more because I had this connection to people that I was to study and read, and they had a purpose, they had a power. I recognized at a certain point that as isolated and as deep as many of the insecurities that I was developing were, my priority was to have the same kind of life that my heroes had. And so growing up, I was the last person chosen for any team, but there was a boy who was chosen all the time. He had great charisma and everyone liked him, and he wanted to play with me, and we were 7. I told my father about this boy named Joel. My father and Joel's mother began to talk, and they began to laugh, and they have been together for now 35 years. And so Joel went from being the popular guy who was kind to me to being my stepbrother. When Joel went to college, he wanted to pledge. He wanted to join a fraternity because he felt it would connect him more deeply to his college experience. I didn't think there was going to be any reason for Joel to have anything but more success, except college hazing, as we call it, was a very different thing. Joel found himself being woken up in the middle of the night, not being able to eat, not having to stand outside when the weather was harsh. He found himself being beaten again and again. I got a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning that Joel had died of a massive heart attack, while hundreds of people at the hazing party had watched. And so it was something that just became inconceivable to process, that someone, anyone, especially someone with as great of a voice and just so much life, could lose their life because no one raised their voice. You let these experiences define you, or do you let these experiences be a gateway or a bridge to who you can become? So I took the plunge. I went to France. So many of my idols had gone over the years, and I became a singer. I was still that same person, that same voice that people used to laugh and talk and write notes about, and all of a sudden I was on the radio and I was singing background vocals for Celine Dion or Steel Pulse or my own material. That hour and a half, 2-hour concert that everything revolved around was glorious. My biggest question was, well, what happens for the rest of those 22 hours in my day, and what happens to everyone when they're leaving? And so that's how I began to really start developing workshops. A success story to me is when parents, first of all, are able to emerge and say, I have understood the definitions, the outcomes, the laws that actually can penalize myself and my children. Teachers are able to say the same thing and be able to be accountable for what they're looking for and spotting, and of course the students as well. Last spring alone, we spoke to 7,000 parents, teachers, and students, and principals, and superintendents. Where we're at now is going beyond just it being a one-person model, but to being a model that will be able to train thousands of people to then be able to affect millions of other people. We each here with a purpose. We each here matter. And so the more each of us are kind of like a flame, lighting someone else's flame to really be the best that we can be while also pursuing our dreams, it's intensely gratifying, and it actually has enabled me to make my own voice and my own light more contagious.